Hey everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Riverman.
Dean, we've been back from VARTECH.
We have.
For about a week now at this point.
Yeah.
It'll be a few weeks ago when this episode comes out. But
it already feels like it's a month away.
yeah, how you feeling?
I've rebounded. I've licked wounds. Yeah. I'm getting there. Yes.
Yeah.
Though I came down with a little bit of cold afterwards. You know, when you're in front of 1,500 people, I guess that's likely to happen.
Mine started while we were there, and thankfully was not too bad for, you know.
Oh, you were the super spreader then.
TEConnect, maybe. The TEConnect Live day and the podcast day. Yeah, I was probably got it for me.
I'm connecting the dots as we speak.
I probably got it on the flight there is what it seemed like. So. But yeah, we're back. We're recovered.
We're good.
We're you know,
it was a great show.
Now we're reflecting.
Yes.
You know, we're looking back. We know not everybody gets to go to this, obviously.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and lots of cool things happen there.
Yep.
Lots of fun new technologies, new innovations.
Absolutely. Do a little
networking dynamics. Yeah. So just like we did last year, we figured, hey, let's recap. Let's do a little debrief. Talk about some of the things we noticed, what we felt about it, what it means, going forward.
I like it.
We look ahead to the next year. So,
that's right.
So yeah, we're going to talk a little brief overview of the show. We're going to get into what happened during the opening session, what happened on the CodeZone floor.
Yes.
Day 2 with
TEConnect Live.
That's always our fun thing we get to do.
Yep.
The educational sessions. We had a podcast record. Actually, that came out last week, so you've already seen that. Evening fun. We're going to talk about some of the fun events.
Oh, yes,
of
course.
The fun that we had.
Part of the whole gig, yeah.
So all that, we'll try to give a takeaway for our VARs of some stuff we learned and what they can do with it.
Takeaways? Yeah, we got some.
Yeah.
There's got to be something.
I hope you have some. I put the question on here. I got something. But and as always, what's TEConnecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, so let's get into it here, Dean. So this year, VARTECH happens September 11th and 12th in San Antonio, Texas.
Beautiful San Antonio.
Place I had never been before.
Oh, really? I didn't realize this was your first time.
First time. I've been to Texas a few times. I've been to Dallas, a couple other places. But I've not actually been to San Antonio. I liked it. I didn't get a chance to go explore much.
Did it feel like
the
the seventh largest city in the U.S.?
It didn't.
No, it doesn't.
I did not know that it
was.
It's
the seventh largest city in the U.S. Yes. I mean, you just L.A., New York, Chicago, Miami.
Is that like by population? Because
I'm missing a population metro. Yeah,
okay.
And it's spread out because the downtown area, which is beautiful, and it's got a unique element which is called the Riverwalk. So if you have a chance to go to San Antonio, you should just because of the Riverwalk. It's that unique. But yeah. Seventh largest city.
Interesting.
But it doesn't. But the downtown's like not much bigger than Cincinnati. It doesn't feel like it. You know,
would not have expected that. It was a very nice, pleasant city.
Spread out. Yeah, lots of people spread out.
There you go. All right. Well, cool. It was also very hot while we were there.
Oh yeah.
It had been fairly warm here in Kentucky.
We broke the 100. When we were there, it actually broke, and the first day that it hadn't been over 100 degrees was the day we were there, and it was like 60 some odd days of 100 or maybe it was 47 days.
Yeah, but we still had some 100-degree temperatures a couple of days.
It was a little hot.
But honestly, we were inside so much.
It was all good.
I didn't feel like, in the evening events, by the time we get out there, it cooled down to like upper 80s or something.
Right.
So it was manageable and tolerable. But anyway, it was a good time. And as always, we always appreciate all the folks that help us put it on. We'll talk more about that later. But let's do a brief overview, though, Dean, and break down some of the numbers, because did we break a record here, or were we close to it? Okay.
No, I think we officially broke a record. I mean, it's so what was unique about this VARTECH again is that it was truly a global VARTECH.
Right.
We brought in customers from our EMEA group, which continues to grow. We continue to distribute farther and farther into EMEA, now including such things as the Arabia area. You've got we're getting into the Near East, I guess, down into Africa. So 1,500 total attendees from EMEA, Canada, U.S. and Latin America. Now, in those attendees, you've got both attendees, what we call, you've got vendor representatives, and then we have a pretty strong contingency of BlueStar people that go to it as well.
Right.
Throw in some guests, throw in some walk-ins, people that just come and show up, and we didn't even know they were going to come. Believe it or not, we had like 30 of them that showed up. So, and that's how you get to that number. And Again, strong contingencies. We've been close to that prior to COVID. We got really close to that, but that's a strong number.
Yeah, no
just
doubt.
slightly over 1,500. Yep,
that's
from
impressive.
47 different countries. So a lot of representation.
Right.
Yeah,
And what I thought was impressive too is it didn't feel particularly cramped or overwhelming, even though like the space that we were using was fairly compact. I mean, you know, is that this big convention? It's the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. And, you know, there's hotels attached to it that we were all staying in, our guests and everything, you know, some various hotels right nearby. So it was all kind of a compact area. But I was impressed that it just never felt like people were like shoulder to shoulder and, you know, and crammed together. Maybe a little bit at the VARTECH launch.
For the VARTECH launch. I was just about to go there. So we did a unique thing this year in that we tried to, so in years past, you know, most of the vendors, well, not most of them, 6 to 8 of them would do receptions, right? And they would invite attendees to come. But what that meant is that not everybody had something to do or a place to go. A little awkward, right? You know, you got some people just kind of wandering around aimlessly like lost dogs, and it's like, all right, I think we can do better. And so we did VARTECH launch, which was a reception for everybody. So even if you didn't have anything to do, you could come, have a drink and an appetizer, and everybody showed up.
In this, what was it, 2-level, I guess?
Yard, the Yard House at San Antonio was absolutely packed. We had overflow into the Marriott. Even that wasn't enough. So lesson learned, you know, when you we should have known better, right?
You offer free food and drinks, and people are going to show.
VARTECHers are going to show up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll do better next year.
But other than that, everything, you know, like on the CodeZone floor. And the
I agree.
sessions,
everything else was well.
Just moving through the hallways, and again, like everything was very close together. You know, we had like the Lila Cockrell Theater. Right down the hall from that was basically where registration, CodeZone, up and downstairs for, you know, breakout sessions and stuff. And I never felt like I was like, you know, weaving and dodging and threading through people just to get around. So it was a good size.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, even though we were spread out over 3 hotels, it's okay. It is what it is. Yep.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the opening session. And you know, obviously, this is your baby every year. You know, you got to get up there and run the show and talk about, you know, kind of like set the stage for the themes for the year, and for what we expect out of the show and what people should expect and be thinking about while they're there. So talk to us a little bit about the theme. You know, you had talked a lot about this like change engine and some of the newer, you know, emerging technologies coming out there. So, you know, kind of recap, what was that session all about and what were you trying to get at there?
And really all we're trying to do is tap into the vibe that we feel like the community is talking about. What are they talking about? What's on the mind of folks? So, you know, the best way we could think to encapsulate that is the change engine, right? I mean, just this general feeling that status quo, and we've been feeling it for a while. You know, we talked about it on the stage last year about VAR 2.0 and where things are going. So, you know, we just kind of retitled it as a change engine and the need for resellers to really get out of their comfort zone, even just a little bit, and start to understand some of the technologies that are creeping in to our bubbles. You know, we kind of referred to it as everybody kind of lives in their bubble from time to time. And hey, when you've got these other technologies that are getting close, if not into your bubble, you need to be aware. So we talked about AI. We talked about retail media networks. We talked about edge solutions. And then finally, we brought up robotics. So there was a lot of good stuff to talk about there. And then kind of the storytelling, because we'll get to this, but Jimmy Yeary was our keynote, and he's just a world-class storyteller. He's just a phenomenal guy, written thousands of country music songs, and can boil down a story really, really quickly. So, you know, we tried to leverage the fact that resellers have a story to tell. It's part of it is the gold that they have in the relationships that they own with their customers, and the superpower of being able to bring partners together to leverage even more business throughout their ecosystem. So again, just kind of going into the big ones. And before we actually, you know, commented on it, we talked about the S-curve of innovation, and not to go too technical, but, you know, when you think about how innovation happens, and we referred to like the way you consume music. You used to consume it cassettes. Now, I know we're old enough to remember cassettes, right?
Yes.
So we got the cassettes, and then, you know, and that follows a curve of innovation, meaning it goes up over time. Performance goes up, cost goes down. But then that was, you know, usurped, I guess is the right word, by CDs, right? There was an innovation jump, and then cloud and streaming. So, you know, we're kind of going through that in a couple ways in some of our industry. And so when you think about it, AI is on everybody's mind, right? It was on it last year when we did the Mid-Journey and the VAR 3.0 and stuff like that, still on everybody's mind. But now LLMs, we've been talking about endlessly on this podcast, ChatGPT and things of that nature have just had a dramatic impact on certain areas, and it's still got people wondering how it's going to be effective. So we talked about that, talked about how APIs and LLMs have grown at 1,300% and things of that. And it's just really stellar stuff that is happening that, is on everybody's mind. And we connected the dot there so that people would go out and visit the people that were on the show floor.
Right.
We had 33 new ISVs this year. Many of them were in the AI realm. So, how do you do that? If you're a reseller, you can sit back scared, or you can engage the people that are there and figure out if there's a good connection. That's what we were definitely encouraging people to do as it relates to AI. Retail media networks, we've been talking about that for a while. This is place-based digital advertising. So many of our POS folks that, have great relationships with retail establishments and restaurants and things of that nature. We're encouraging them just get in the game, because a lot of the ad dollars, $50 billion by 2023, are going into retail media networks. That's a ton of money that's being dumped into it. A lot of that is going to go to place-based. So, and you don't have to know. All you have to know is the ecosystem that we've built for people,
right.
And leverage your relationships. Get with our PEDO team. There you go. So we were talking a lot about that as well. And then, we got into finally a little bit about the edge. A lot is happening on the edge. You've got AI that's happening on the edge, machine vision, VR, AR, all those types of things. Where does that occur? It's all on the edge. A lot of money being dumped there, $67 billion in edge AI alone by 2025. So a lot of good stuff is happening. And one other stat that I thought was alarming, which is why we called it out, 50% of enterprise data processing is happening outside of the cloud or data centers.
Right.
So what does that mean? Like, all this information, great, it's being processed, but 50% of it is now being processed on the edge.
Right.
So, or it's going to be there. So you really kind of got to get into it. Finally, robotics. It was the first time we had robotics on the show floor. It was the first time we even talked about
They
it.
were very noticeable too. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Patrolling up and down the aisles. It was easy to see them.
And see, this is one of those technologies that, again, people are in their bubble, but it's getting a little bit closer to our bubble. I mean, 3-4 years ago, 2 years ago, you didn't really see the AMRs that we had on our show floor, which is table side delivery. Right. It's like, okay, you're the chef, this is for table 3, hit go, zzz, the little robot goes out and delivers it. Well, we had those robots there. And if I was a POS reseller, I'd be like, man, there's an opportunity here. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. You got AMRs back in warehousing and stuff like that. We showed how BlueStar is going through an automation transition here globally with some investments that we've made. And so we're walking the walk, if you will, and starting to implement some of it. Just a lot of good stuff to talk about. But robotics for me was like this is the one that, hey, because we as a channel need to figure it out. We're at this precipice where it's like, okay, is the channel going to react to this and actually embrace it and figure out how to commercialize robotics in our channel, or are we just going to let that opportunity go away and others will take, because it's not like it's not going to happen. Right. I mean, automation in warehousing and logistics and restaurants and stuff like that, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of where are we going to be involved in. So,
well, it's kind of like,
long-winded, but that was a lot to talk about in the general session. Yeah.
It's kind of like the electric vehicle, for example.
That's right.
I think of, something where it's going to happen. Just because you may not like it, just because you're going to hold on to your gas guzzler as long as you want to.
That doesn't mean there's an opportunity.
It doesn't mean there's not an opportunity, and it doesn't mean that we're not heading that way. More and more people are going to buy these vehicles. More and more production is going to shift over to them at some point in potentially within our lifetimes.
Oh, for
You'll
sure.
reach a point where car manufacturers simply are no longer making gas engines anymore. It will happen. So the question I think becomes is, do you get involved with, and I'm using that as an example.
No, it's a great example.
Do you get involved with a technology like that now?
Yep.
Or do you wait until maybe you're far behind your competition who have already invested and got in there? Because eventually you're going to have to if you want to stay in business. So, and that's the same thing with robotics, same thing with edge, with AI. that stuff is going to have to become part of your business. One or more of those technologies will become part of your business at some point in the future.
Yep.
Whether you necessarily want to or not right now, it's a question of how soon do you want to get involved? How soon do you want to start talking about it?
That's it.
And we're not saying like, hey, tomorrow you got to load up your
Oh, no.
your
Nobody
back room
can
of your
do that
warehouse
just
with
yet.
some robots and start shipping them out. No one really is doing that. You're right.
You can't because it doesn't exist in the channel, which is
exactly.
We're like pre that, which is why it's such a wonderful
But you've
time.
got to
right
have
now.
those conversations.
Well, you do
now.
because, and here's why: all the major vendors are trying to figure out the robotics play. Zebra, Honeywell, Epson, Samsung, LG. I mean, across the board, they all have a play,
right?
And they're all trying to figure out: is this channel enabled or is this direct?
Right.
How is this going to pan out? So we as a channel, if we want to have a play, we have to get serious about it. We have to have the conversations with the vendors and start figuring it out. To your point, it's not, we don't have to figure it out tomorrow,
right?
But to my mind, this is like a 5-year horizon, right? I mean, 5 years from now, I'm hoping that the channel would have embraced it. We've got a channel play in place. For innovative folks that want to get into this business, there's a meaningful way for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it will.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that makes VARTECH special is I think we take a very much a show, not just tell approach to this stuff. It's easy for, to have a show like this and just get up there and just spout off all the numbers and say like, hey, AI is coming. Hey, edge computing's here. Hey, robots are coming. Here's all the numbers. Here's all the details of what's going to happen. And then just leave it at that. Like, get ready. That's easy to do, but we try to back it up and be like, hey, we're also going to bring in people that can show you how this stuff is
That's
working.
right.
Again,
That's right.
Maybe you're not doing it yet. Maybe you're not actively selling this stuff yet. Maybe it's not, maybe we're still unsure how it's going to fit in the channel, but at least we're going to show it to you. When you went out to that CodeZone floor, you couldn't escape the robots.
Nope.
I literally bumped into one at one point as he was roaming the aisles. You couldn't escape the ISVs that were offering AI solutions. You couldn't escape the folks that were talking about edge. It could be, and I would hope that most resellers that were attending, and anybody who's listening who didn't get to go is not thinking about this as a fine, I'll keep an eye on it, corner my eye, but I'm really not interested in it right now. I'm hoping like the folks that went to the show, they spent some time really talking with people about this stuff and really looking at it, and not just. It's easy to go and
that's a really good point.
Visit the floor and say, all right, show me the latest barcode scanner, the latest mobile computer, the latest display. Sure, you can do that and just see whatever the new specs.
Right. Yeah.
And no slight to those because we need that stuff. That's what all the where all the magic ends up happening. But I would hope by now that if you are a solutions provider, if you're interested in delivering full solutions to your customers, that you also spend just as much time getting out there and talking to some of these new innovators and these edge technologies, and at least opening up some dialogues and understanding what they're offering and why their solution exists, what problems they're trying to solve, and thinking about, man, how is that going to fit into what I'm doing, even if it's not something I'm going to do something with right now.
Absolutely. And it's a perfect time to do that because a lot of companies are starting to get into their 24 planning. These are the kinds of things that you need to start noodling on. Is it something that we start with? What are we going to pick? Pick 1, 2 kind of a thing to go after. Good stuff. Yep.
So let's pivot a little bit. You mentioned Jimmy Yeary earlier.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
our
He's
keynote speaker.
Great. He's awesome.
He's a country musician, a storyteller, presenter. And I think some folks might have initially thought, like, what does a country music guy have to do with, technology?
Right.
Retail, technology reseller show. What does that mean?
Yep.
But I think, by the end of his presentation, we all kind of got into, and I'll say for my part, the fundamental idea of his presentation is the idea of storytelling, of taking what has happened to you in your life and what's happened in the lives of others and the stories that you get from other people, the stories you tell yourself, and using that as a way to craft, in his case, his music and the work that he does. But I think the bigger story I think he was trying to tell there is that happens in all forms of business. And, we've talked about it before. We've had folks on talking about consultative selling and, smart selling. And people like to buy from people. And the attitude of when you develop a trust in a relationship and you develop a bond with somebody and learn a little about who they are. It doesn't have to be at a personal level, but at least understand who they are as a business person, even understand how they operate their business, understand what they're looking to get out of their business. And then maybe you even understand a little bit about them as people as well. And when you do that, that helps you craft a story around who you are then. And you're taking stories from what you've done in the past with other customers, from what the people on your team bring in, Together, you're just building this nice little story that you can put together. And that's a story you can go out and then tell to your customers, your potential customers. You can get their stories, figure out where their stories weave together. And I think Jimmy kind of, illustrated that, and throughout his presentation. And we'll, drop in a clip here, to kind of, give you an example of what he was talking about.
Because stories connect. Stories form a bond, and they form a friendship, whether you realize it or not. So I love to talk about storytelling and how to effectively tell a story, but not long, drawn-out stories, but stories rather about your life that can connect with others, oftentimes within seconds, for the purposes of networking, for selling a product, for selling an idea, for selling ultimately yourself. So I'm going to talk a little bit about feeling so other people can feel. The level at which I feel something, you feel it. The level at which I don't, you don't. But if I feel something, you feel it. And if you feel it, we connect. And if we connect, we form a friendship. And friends help friends. If I feel it, you feel it. You feel it, we connect. We connect, we form a friendship. And friends help friends. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to sing here in a second. Shut up, okay? Second, we're going to talk about how to help others not feel alone. The importance of helping others not feel alone. We all have an intrinsic need not to feel alone. And when you meet that need, you make a friend. And friends help friends. And last, we're going to discuss why your story matters. Why your story genuinely matters. All the good, bad, and the ugly, the triumphs and the tragedies of your life. I feel like I could take any life in this room right now, I believe this with all of my heart, and I could write hit songs for the rest of my life. I would just tell your story. But nobody can tell your story quite like you can.
So we wanted to make sure that there was a connecting piece there that helped people understand. So what I love is at the end of his presentation, he actually came out to the audience and started asking folks for little bits and pieces of info, like, what was your first car? Tell me about a memory with your father. Tell me about something that broke your heart. Tell me about this stuff.
Right.
And, and he had someone on stage writing the ideas down. And he literally, when he was done, got up on stage and quickly crafted a song with all those little details and that told a story about, a life potentially,
That's right. That's right.
So,
really
what's your thoughts on this?
guy.
How did you feel about that?
I think you just nailed it. And but the other thing that I'll add to it, I suppose, is what I got out of him is he did kind of hone in on the fact of being very efficient in telling your stories.
That's true.
Like how to add a little bit to it, but not overdo it. And the thing that wrong with me, he one of his famous sayings is, I can tell you about my dad, or I can tell you about the guy who taught me how to fish. Same person. But it's just a little bit more information, brings a little bit more feeling and emotion into it. Yep. But it's not a lot more words.
Right.
It's not like we had to develop a paragraph. It's just a couple more words, descriptive. And that was kind of the genius because, I think that some people struggle with storytelling and that, oh my gosh, I got to sit here and I got to think about, walk people through the whole story. Well, that's not necessarily it. And I think you did a good job of layering it, but he's really efficient at pulling in the right words and kind of boiling stuff down to it. And you have to do that in songwriting. Yeah. I guess that's part of the genius of songwriting is, okay, I can take these big concepts and then just whittle it down to 20 words.
Right.
Because that's all I got time.
I do a 13-minute song about everything that happened, in my life? Yeah, exactly. Or do I take a key moment that's representative of how I became who I am and why I do what I do or why a certain situation affected me in a way and use that to tell a story. And you're right. I think to that point, I think there's two angles of that. One, for you as a business person and as a company and, and someone trying to tell your story, maybe let's talk about like a case study. A case study is an example of telling a single story.
That's it.
That can give a potential customer or a current customer or whatever an idea of who you are, what you do, what you can do, what a certain technology can do.
Bingo.
You don't have to have all the details. You don't have to explain start to finish when you were founded, who was the first person to work in your company, what kind of coffee you had in the original office. You don't
all
have
the
to tell
tech specs behind it,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
what products you sold in 1988 versus now. You don't need all of that detail. If you're able to tell somebody like, hey, you know what? Here's a customer similar to you who had a problem similar to you. Here's what we did to solve that. That's the story I'm going to tell you to help you understand why you should be working with me.
That's
and
it.
I think
that's a great connection.
The flip side of that is if you're talking to a customer and if you can draw a story like that out of them, that can tell you a lot. Maybe it's a story like, hey, tell me about a really bad day that you guys had using technology or something. Tell me about a day that your point of sale system just did not live up to your needs or something. That story they tell you could be one single day, could be a single incident, could be something that can help you then deliver a better solution and a better outcome.
Yeah, and dig into the emotion. What I don't want to get overly touchy feely, but ask them. So, how did that make you feel? Or
you don't have to ask them what happened there, the day their dad took them fishing or anything. But
but I think that does add a layer, right?
It does. Yes.
That people have an emotional connection to. So it was really good stuff. I liked him. I enjoyed him. I didn't realize he wrote as many #1 hits as he had. So is just he's a pretty down home kind of guy.
Yeah, recommend checking him out. He's
for sure
fascinating, interesting person, and check out some of his music. I was impressed like when we were backstage, the day before, and he comes in. Just to do a quick little rehearsal and sound check or whatever, and he's just like strumming out some stuff and trying some things out. I'm like, I'm excited.
That's how
for
he
this guy.
traveled.
Just listen to this. Yeah,
he's got his guitar in a backpack. And clothes in that same case. That's how he travels.
Yeah, he's very very unassuming guy. He just shows up, does his thing.
One pair of boots and
Yeah,
a change of clothes.
Like I saw him, that morning. I saw him backstage. He was just kind of pacing around, and you could tell he was kind of thinking through his presentation a little. His head. I did not even realize it was him at first. I just kind of happened to be walking over the other side, and so I'm like, hey man, hey, good luck out there today. And he's like, oh yeah, hey, so I'm going to go out through here, and what happens when I come off stage? I'm like, oh, you're just going to go over to this side. I'll be there. Stuff like that. Just not not an interaction you expect to have with a world talented
Grammy
musician.
Award winning.
Exactly. So. All right, let's shift over. Let's talk a little bit about CodeZone because let's be honest, that's kind of the heart and soul, I suppose, if you will, of VARTECH. All these presentations and the fun and stuff are great, but at the end of the day, we devote 4 hours every day to this massive floor where people can go out and meet with all of our vendors, meet with ISVs,
new folks,
do some networking, see some new technologies. So what was the vibe like for you on the CodeZone floor this year?
Well, I thought it was a good buzz this year. It seemed packed just about the whole time, which is awesome. In fact, in some of the surveying we got, I was a little bit surprised that we had more than a handful of people ask for more time.
Wow.
On the CodeZone floor, and to your point, I mean, I think we dedicated like 7 hours.
I think so,
for people to be on there. It's like, holy moly, more time. Okay, but that's good in the sense that I guess they felt like they still needed more time to get around to the ISVs would be my guess and that kind of thing because we had I think it was 57 total ISVs on the floor, and there are a lot of good ones, and so having that many conversations, plus I'm sure a lot of folks want to go see their vendors and all that kind of good stuff. So I thought the vibe was good. Impressed that people were asking for more time. I think that what I noticed is a lot of folks were taking even more care in showcasing their solutions this year. I think that just shows are back. Period. Yeah, and I think that people were taking a little bit more care in how they were presenting. For the last couple of years, it's been more of a, oh my God, we got to do events again. We got to throw stuff together and stuff like that. But quite a few of the manufacturers really took care into their booths and how they were presenting solutions, kind of how they were matching up with folks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, robotics. You already pointed it out. Running into the robots, we did invite an organization called First in Texas, which is an organization dedicated towards teaching children from K to 12 on STEM projects, but really kind of focusing on robotics. It was such a joy to have them there. These kids are just so geeky about robots. They build their own robots. Yep. If you watch BattleBots or anything like that, these are the kids that are building it before BattleBots. Right. But they're building their own robots that do specific tasks that they compete with globally. These are global competitions. We had one of their teams on the floor. So these are, 13 to 16-year-old kids building robots that can do amazing things, and they were running their robots on the floor too. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think one of the things that impressed me about CodeZone is I felt like I felt like the booths always felt busy.
Yeah,
Like
right.
whenever I would go wandering through for whatever reason, at some points I just kind of like went out there and just walked around and visited with some of my previous vendors that I used to work with and just some folks I know. And I always felt like all the booths were always busy. You know how it is. Sometimes you go to some trade shows and there will be a few booths that just like have like one or two people that might be hanging around,
or the inverse, like one or two booths that everybody goes to,
exactly,
and then nobody else is going anywhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I felt like people were very well dispersed in this one. I think a very smart idea, and I don't know if this was your idea, who it was to mix the ISVs in a little bit more with the overall, with the vendors overall. We kind of like, if you walked in, you had the big stuff up front, obviously, and then basically if you went down the center lane, there was ISVs kind of on all sides, kind of mixed in with
much smaller
with
booths.
the vendors.
Yeah,
Yes.
like just little tabletops, ish kind of a thing. Yeah.
And I thought that was very helpful. I think for them to get them kind of more involved, but I think it also speaks to what we're trying to accomplish here when it comes to the ISV community, which is in the past VARTECH we might have had them kind of cordoned off maybe towards the back or given them. I know we had Solution City here, at some points, like a little kind of area you walked in that showed off solutions and ISV partners. But I think the fact that we're getting to this point where we are telling people like, look, you're going to have relationships with ISVs. You can't go out and just be a hardware vendor anymore. It just is, or a hardware reseller. It's probably not going to get you very far at this point. If it's your niche, fine, but more than likely you're gonna need to start building out these relationships and partnerships.
Amp your ecosystem.
And I think this was a perfect an example of that. Like, look, they're interspersed. They're mixed right in here. You're going to find your hardware vendor. You're going to look to the left, and there's going to be an ISV sitting there telling you about edge computing or AI, or something that you're going to need to incorporate with that hardware to go out and sell a solution.
That's it.
It's one of those things I'm like, I don't see us ever going back from that. It makes no sense going forward to not.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea it was. It was a great one. But I agree with you. I'm glad we implemented it because it was different.
But I just thought there was a good energy too, which was interesting because like the convention space that we had there was very very traditional one.
Very
like just kind of like just your big kind of echoey room.
Yes, exactly. Cement floor, big room.
And I remember because I was down there on the advanced team. We were down there early, and like I remember walking in there before they really set much up yet, and just being like, oh, I don't know about this. This big dark room kind of thing,
This looks like a big dark empty room. Yeah.
And then day one of CodeZone happens, and I walk in there, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Like I get it now. I feel the vibe here. So even though it wasn't it wasn't some of the more flashy and exciting kind of conference
ballrooms that we were typically
in, it still had a lot of fun energy to it, and in some ways, I think almost the compactness of it kind of again helped make it a little bit feel more energetic and friendly and. People being able to, very quickly and easily pivot from, a Zebra, the big booth that Zebra always have, and then turn around and there's a small ISV who's here for their first show. Yeah. And yet has something dynamic and interesting that catches people's attention.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Agreed.
Love that. All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about day two. So,
yes.
Day two, we kick things off with the event that you and I now 2 years running have been hosting together. And
2, 3?
I have no idea.
Has it been 3?
I think it's only been 2. It's just been you and me doing it. So, you did it the previous year like by yourself.
Solo?
I think.
Oh my god, I did.
I don't.
What the hell was I thinking?
I don't know how in the world you did that, frankly.
I wasn't thinking.
It's an undertaking for the two of us, let alone by yourself. So it's TEConnect Lives we're talking about here. This is our big showcase that we have on day 2 where we bring it all. And mind you, this year we just kept it just the newest ISVs.
Just new ones. Never been to VARTECH.
New ISVs who had not been to VARTECH, had not been up there on stage before, coming out and talking about their solutions. I'll tell you what stood out to me. I'll ask you in a moment for maybe some of the ones that stood out to you. But overall, what stood out to me was a lot of very unique offerings. And this is not a slight to the folks that just, that have POS software or supply chain software, asset management stuff, WMS. All that stuff is great and vital too. And we had some of those interspersed in there.
For sure.
But I also saw so many new and unique ISVs that had very unique solutions, very niche solutions, and yet ones that are still very vital solutions, ones that there's definite opportunity, to get in them. One I'll call out, Safer Watch was one that really stood out to me. They were in there talking about school safety and public safety and telling a story that's hard for people to hear about, the things that we hear about happening at schools.
Lockdowns and things of that nature.
Violent events, but realizing like, hey, there's a need there there's plenty of ways people can talk about to potentially solve that problem. But for now, while this problem is still a regular one, having more opportunities and more ways to, to get information out as quickly as possible and lock things down as quickly as possible. And simple solutions, something like that they were offering to help out with that. That's the kind of stuff that I think in years past, maybe you wouldn't have seen someone with that very specific of a solution really having a foothold in there. They would exist, but you wouldn't see them showing up at a major show.
That's right.
You wouldn't see them up there on stage. And I was very impressed that we had companies like that were out there. So tell me about some of the ones that really stood out to you.
I had a couple of them on my list, but I agree with you. I think that the team, because the way that we execute this is we've got a great marketing staff, full of business development managers. They go out every year and they try to find, who are the newest, latest, greatest ISVs, try to invite them, try to get them to participate. And we had a plethora this year. So just a couple. Standard Insight which was a flexible AI development kind of company. AI was, as we've already talked about, had a lot on the plate, but we had some really unique ones, and Jerry over there was awesome. I like this one. I think you like this one too. Redwall. Yes. When you have something like this, defense grade mobile device security. I mean, come on. That's great marketing right there. Defense grade? Well, of course, it must be rock solid, right? Good stuff like that.
And we did a marketing campaign with them that was very successful too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Truffle was another good one. Here's an ISV coming out of Canada. They do aggregations of online pickup automation and stuff like that. They've really got a kind of unique angle there. And they're a great Epson partner, so that was a good one.
Yeah.
Remark AI, so enabling AI in the retail. Again, I'm a sucker for AI, but any of those types of folks that play in that are good. What did you think about Keen Research? This is that on-device speech recognition. I thought that was this is one of those ones like, never thought about that, but okay. But so what they do is they can enable mobile devices to recognize speech from a variety of languages and enable that vocal, into whatever solutions and software and stuff like that.
Yep.
So kind of
and
cool.
as a internationally, continuously growing global community type world, I mean that's important,
Pretty relevant. Two more, PayJunction, no-code payment integration. Kyle over there at PayJunction, they've got a really good thing going on there. If you don't know a lot about them and you're in the payments world, you need to find out about PayJunction. And then finally, TEConnect POS. They won our Innovative ISV Award. They've got a unique, of course, it's a POS offering, but they got local support. And a couple of the other unique features that really call them out a little bit. So, good stuff, though.
In fact, let's go ahead and drop the clip of them right here since they won that Innovative Tech Award.
There you go.
All right, local support, that can be a kind of a big deal, right?
Local support?
Yeah. Instead of having to call like a tech support technician that's hundreds of miles away or something, it's nice to have somebody that's in your backyard and can come, see you in person.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of what TEConnect POS does. They're offering market-leading tech for hospitality POS. Let's hear from Tyler Young.
Tyler, good morning.
TEConnect. TEConnect is a hospitality point-of-sale product good for every venue, from quick serve to fine dining and many more. TEConnect is also a drink you'll find at every bar and restaurant and has a lot of entertainment and good times. TEConnect is also a remedy for the hospitality industry and for VARs. And TEConnect is also a product that we focus on point of sales. VARs. VARTECH is where we are today, and VARs is the future, we believe, for the industry. We've seen a lot of the competitors that have come out with cloud products, and they have been focused on direct sales. We believe that there is a need for local service and support. So TEConnect is a new name for a lot of you, but TEConnect is not a new team and not a new product. We have the founders of Hot Sauce Point of Sale, Ordex Point of Sale, going back all the way to 1997 with the founder of Restaurant Computer Solutions. With this team, we've built a technology that is feature-rich and checks all the boxes that a VAR is looking for, paired with a team focused on serving VARs. It's all about the relationship that we serve the VAR and the VAR serves the customer. And that's why we have the TEConnect Partner Program. Thank you very much.
All right, a couple other ones that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah.
SensePass, they
SensePass,
offer e-wallet integration, kind of like everybody should be able to pay however they want to pay. Which
Right.
we talk every time we talk about payments. I'm always talking about how I want to be able to pay the way I want to pay.
Yes,
and that's a company that wants to enable that. And then Lifesaver, I thought was another interesting one. Whose their goal is to help out with distracted driving. So if you have employees who are driving, whether it's forklifts or delivery vehicles or whatever, basically locking down their devices, or keeping them safe so that distracted driving is not causing incidents for them and for your company and liabilities.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
Love that.
I mean, think about all the fleets that are out there and stuff like that, right? No, your device isn't going to work. When you're driving, you're driving.
We all know, we've seen people, every day, you're commuting, you look over and you'll see that person, in the middle of driving, with a phone in one hand and trying to drive like this with the other. And you're like, really? So the good important stuff there. Listen, if you want to see the full breadth of TEConnect Live, though, we actually do have a playlist on YouTube of the entire show, start to finish. It's back. We broke it up into 3 parts, in fact, because there were so many of them. We had such good stuff. So if you want to check that out, go to the show notes. I'll drop the link in there to that playlist so you can watch these presentations yourself. Everybody got to get up there and give at least 90-second or 2-minute pitch, I think, up to 2-minute pitch about who they are. You'll see little title cards about information about them. So good way if you're looking for some new partners and you're looking for new ISVs.
We just made it easy for you.
We made it easy for you. We don't want you to miss out on this just because you were to the show. So go check out that show in the show.
That's awesome. So. Yeah, good stuff.
All right, and you can see Dean and I doing our thing, throughout that whole thing too.
Right.
Okay, so
keeping the education going.
Yeah, let's talk about the educational sessions. We always have these, couple tracks each day of panelists and education sessions and discussions about specific technologies or specific industries. Unfortunately, we did one as a podcast recording. Obviously, that was the episode that was out last week. I didn't get to attend any of the other ones, and I know you probably didn't either. But what did you? We've gotten some feedback.
I got some survey results. So, yeah.
What do we hear about?
If you look at the top 4. Which is always interesting to see. And we try to your point, we try to do a kind of a wide swath of topics, try to touch a little bit on everything, whether it's ADC, POS, payments, et cetera, et cetera. We really try to have a nice mix of stuff, so it's interesting to see what people vote on by attending, right? And so we do a post survey and basically ask which ones were the better ones that you thought. So the top rated ones were RFID, which is it was an RFID trends and solutions session, and there's just a lot of interest around RFID right now. That one was like off the charts, close to 40%. Wow. Approval on that. So that's, that by far and away was the clear winner. Tech trends and supply chain, supply chain still gets a lot of run. Our podcast on ChatGPT, and that was ranked number 3. So that, that rung with people, and it was a full room. By the way.
It was.
And would that podcast be out by the time this one comes out?
Yes, that came out last week already.
Okay, yeah. So if I don't know, you can't see it in the room because you only see the 3 of us, but man, it was a packed room. It was good.
By far our biggest crowd that we've had. We've done these, 3 years now?
For sure.
Yeah, and that was our biggest crowd easily.
And then the final one was top 4 was AI machine vision. So, which you would think, so there's still a lot of interest around there. We did do something unique on the education sessions here where we brought in a third-party entity. It was called Digital Boot Camp, and they trained people on such things as social branding, personal social branding, digital marketing techniques, and things like that. And I think that had a good review as well. But, it was what was nice about it is we, as the insiders, didn't have to come up with those sessions, and we just kind of left it to the professionals. Right. But I think that was really well received. So we've got some surveying results where people are definitely interested in maybe what I'll call a non-panelist type of format where they're receiving information. In this case, they could be digital boot camp certified on certain things. So good stuff there on some of the sessions. Yeah, that was the main takeaways, though.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about some of the fun that we had there too. And this isn't to give everybody FOMO necessarily, or that you hate that you missed it. We'll call this like, hey, if you are interested in visiting San Antonio, here's a couple of recommendations of things that we did fun though as in the evenings that we would recommend for you. Yep. So night one or Monday night, we all went out to the SP, which I don't know how to describe this place. It's kind of like a concert venue / little kind of like bar area, outdoor pavilion, just not a terribly large area, but enough to fit our crowd. And they had like food and drinks out there. You could wander into each of the bars. We also had our TEConnect there, which is kind of like our little place where we have all the ISVs for the first hour. Come in and hang out in this little room. Yeah, and you could go in and visit with any of them if you wanted. That actually turned out really well. There was those folks were very busy the whole time they were there. Yeah. It helped that bar line was very short, so I think that was
it was in air conditioning.
It was in air conditioning, so it was helpful to get people in there. But there's like live music there, all kinds of good food. You were very impressed with the paella.
Yes,
the giant
paella
bowl of paella that was brought up. Yeah,
these are pans that takes 2 dudes to carry it out. Not small guys either. I mean, it's just like huge amounts of paella.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fun. And then night 2, we went out to Knibbe Ranch to end of VARTECH, where we actually got to experience a rodeo, kind of a Texas-style sit-down picnic table dinner.
Good old steak and barbecue dinner. Yeah.
This big rodeo with bull riding and horse riding and a huge drone show at the end, which was that our biggest drone show?
That was our biggest drone show. 300 drones.
That seemed like a massive amount of drones that we had.
It was. They kind of filled up the sky there. It's definitely, you can tell the difference between 100 drones and 300 drones. Yeah.
So what stood out to you? I know you actually got to be one of the MCs at the rodeo up there, calling some of the shots.
That was unique. That was fun.
Was it?
I mean, the guy who does it is a professional. If you've never been to a rodeo, kind of the show flow, if you will, is they run the bowls, and they've got, I think they had 8 guys that ran bowls, and then depending on how well they do and score, they come back and compete for the final prize. But in the middle, they do the barrel racing with the girls. So, and this guy's got a program down in his computer, and I mean, he talks like a late night DJ. He's got his music going. It just keeps the energy really high, right? And he's got every song that keeps the energy high. Yeah. And he's like, he looks at me, he's like, you can just say, off mic. He's like, well, you can just say whatever you want to say, and we can play off of each other and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was nice to have some riffs with him. And I started, I was asking him about style points and, how do you do that kind of stuff. And he did a great job of getting the crowd going. But if you've never been to a rodeo, you should go.
That was my first. I'd never been to one before.
Never?
Yeah. It was kind of interesting.
So. It's just a weird experience. Yeah. Because that's just, we're city folk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't go around. Exactly. These guys and gals, I'm more impressed by the girls doing the barrel racing. I mean, they just fly into the arena, zip around 3 barrels and haul butt out of there. And they're all strong women. If you can handle horses like that, it was a really, really good time. So, the fact is we try to bring people together for networking so that they can have a shared experience. That's really part of what we try to build with VARTECH, and I think that these 2 evening events were very instrumental in doing that.
Yeah. So, you get a little bit of that networking aspect, and you also just get to let loose and have fun. Because those are long days.
I mean, long days.
I know for us, obviously, working it, but then I'm sure for attendees, too, it's just, it's a long, busy day. We're kicking off, 8:30 in the morning usually with the opening stuff, and then it's
here we are 9:30 at night. Yeah.
Straight on through to like 4 or 5 before you're done with your day. And then you guys basically got to get ready to go out and try to have some fun. So it's a packed couple days we put in there.
It takes a lot of people to make it happen.
It does, and I want to give a quick shout out then to all the people that do make it possible. First of all, our vendors. We appreciate all of them who support the show every year. That sponsor it, show up, get their booth set up, show up all their cool stuff, the new stuff they've got out there, and all the other stuff too. I mean, they lend people to some of our education sessions. They'll buy some neat tchotchkes and stuff that we can do as giveaways. Which, by the way, the cowboy hat, we gave out a cowboy hat.
Oh man, was that a big hit?
That was easily the most popular item that we gave out
ever
at VARTECH.
Yeah, because we gave them out on day 1.
Yeah.
And people were wearing them at the very end.
Oh yeah,
at the very end.
They were wearing them the whole time.
They brought their cowboy hats, and man, that was good.
That was a good one. Yeah. Shout out obviously to all those ISVs, the folks that have been there before, all the new ones that we got. We appreciated having them. Our marketing team, our BlueStar marketing team,
outstanding.
We're the ones that our folks are the ones that pretty much get all this together.
Yep.
And
not pretty much, we do.
They do, yes. And and we work on it for months ahead of time. We start planning months out ahead of time.
Yep.
All the way up to the end, there's just especially like the last few weeks, that month or so before VARTECH, there's just so much crunch going on, getting everything squared away, making sure
many
where
details,
they're supposed to be.
Tens of thousands of little details.
And then that doesn't even count them when we get there.
Yeah, that's right.
We bring in an advanced team, and I'm not going to take much credit for that. I would help out with bag stuffing and some AV setup, but you've got the guys that are out there helping haul stuff, from the trucks, to get it in to start building booths.
And these are not their day jobs, by the way.
No.
These are business development managers.
Exactly. We're They're office
unloading
people.
trucks.
Yeah.
Got pallet jacks running stuff around. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
So
that's good stuff.
Kudos to our team that pulls this off every year. The Cinecast crew.
Yep, they're awesome.
Anthony and Ellie.
Anthony and
them.
Ellie. Yeah, if you ever need anybody that can do full up AV for an event, they are top notch.
They're
top
plus
notch.
they're just good people.
They're great.
They're fun to
people.
be around.
Great people.
They're great behind the
Yep.
scenes.
Call me, I'll get you connected.
Yeah, no
Yep.
doubt. They're
Yep.
awesome. The Stetson crew,
Staying with Stetson,
who always helps
decorating,
out with
show decoration,
getting the bones, if you will, the structure of the show set up before.
That's
all
a
the
great way
vendors
of describing it.
And then the folks at the Henry Gonzalez Convention
Good
Center,
people.
Good people.
Yeah,
always.
to your point, I mean, San Antonio is an easy city to do this in. Lots of good people that will in that city. Just good old Texas welcome kind of people, and they'll do whatever you need them to do. And and that's what a show requires. There's a lot of little details.
There you go. And last, I will give a kudos to you.
Oh, not me.
Because your role, especially since you jumped into the VP role, a lot of VARTECH gets put on your back and your shoulders to get us there and over the finish line. And I know
somebody's
got to
lead the team, I guess, huh? Right? There you go.
And you do a great job. We appreciate
having
you at the top of the pecking order there and giving us our marching orders.
A couple other people, behind the scenes though. You got Jack Feichner, who a lot of people know Jack. He does an inordinate amount, and then Angie Hubbard. She's just awesome.
Yeah. Angie starts sweating about VARTECH probably about 3 days after the previous one ends.
I'll go January. She'll have
I don't know.
A 3-month pause.
We had a team meeting this morning, and you mentioned some stuff that it looked like her eye kind of twitched a couple of things.
Oh,
a couple of things that she might have to change for next year. So
good stuff. Good stuff.
All right. Well, hey, that does it for our recap of the show. Like I mentioned, you can find some videos. We'll have other videos out on our VARTECH page or our YouTube page, obviously, as well. Some kind of recaps of the show and little videos that you can see, what some of the stuff would look like. Highly recommend checking that stuff out. I'll link to whatever I can in the show notes for this episode. And hey, if you weren't going last year, if you have the opportunity to go next year,
talk to your sales rep.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to them about it.
Get an invite.
We'll see if we can get you out there, because it's a very worthwhile, packed couple of days that can have you going back with a lot of extremely useful information, and hopefully some really good new partnerships too. So, but hey, in the meantime, some of those same sponsors that show up and do all that stuff on the floor are also sponsors of our TEConnect podcast and our TEConnect program, which is how we bring all these ISVs into the channel.
Yes.
So kudos to them. Thanks so much for their
Zebra,
support.
Honeywell, Intel. I'm just going to rattle some of them off. Samsung. There's all Epson. There's all kinds of them. Star.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
we appreciate them and their support of our show, our programs, and getting us here and and helping make this podcast possible. If you like what we do here on the podcast, if you smash that subscribe button. Listen, subscribe on any podcaster of your choice. Even if you normally watch it on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to
that's a good idea.
The audio feed. If you're listening, if you got an Apple device or Google Play or whatever, just subscribe.
Yes.
Maybe the next time you're at like an event with your family or something, just grab their phone and subscribe them to the podcast. Doesn't matter if anyone listens to it. Just get some. Well, I take it back. Put it on auto downloads.
Nice.
So at least the episodes
shows
get
up in their
just,
feed.
Just helps us out a little bit. The more people that are listening and downloading, the more this gets recommended to other folks that might find our podcast
Love
interesting.
It. Yes.
As always, too, we need your ideas for the show. So if you've got an idea for us, we need you to send those in. There's always a link in the show notes. You can drop ideas to us. We'll send you a TEConnect podcast T-shirt just for doing so. We're actually talking about maybe revamping the shirt for the new year.
Yes.
So we might have some cool new look to it. You might want to get in on that.
Yes.
So submit your ideas to us. Tell us, what do you want to hear about on the show? Who do you want to hear from? What technology should we be talking about? If you watch, let's say, those TEConnect live videos, and one of those particular ISVs, you're like, man, I want to hear more about them. Tell us. We'll see if we can get them on the show and talk to you more about their solutions.
It's a great idea.
Whatever solutions and problems they're trying to tackle. And as always, if you want to keep in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter /X/ whatever Elon Musk is calling it today, at TEConnectPod, or email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, Dean, let's wrap up here. Let's talk value to the VAR real quick, because, VARTECH is all about the VAR.
That's it.
It's the reason why we put VAR in the name.
That's it.
So for let's recap again for any of the VARs that didn't attend. What did you learn that anyone can use? Like, what's a takeaway that you maybe didn't, hadn't thought about before, or something new or something that occurred to you that you think our VAR audience should be really thinking about right now?
Well, I'm just going to go back to just kind of where we kicked it off. with understanding what some of your gold is, the relationships that you have, and the superpower you have to be able to grow your business through partner alliances. And so even though you weren't able to be there, I think it's a great idea that we're posting, the TEConnect Live and things of that nature, where you can still consume some of the education and some of the connections that came out of it, because that's how people are going to succeed moving forward. I know we talk about it a lot here, but partner-assisted ecosystems are how it happens, and to me, that continues to be the takeaway of these types of events.
Yeah. I think similar to me, I think we've talked about the partner ecosystem and the developing the partnerships, full solutions. I think this show just reiterated what we keep talking about year over year, that we're beyond just a hardware-only play at this point.
Yeah.
And that was something I never felt like hardware was a sole focus at any point during this whole thing. I never felt like anybody was just talking about displays or just talking about, a barcode scanner or whatever, or just talking about a point of sale, cash register or whatever. There was always... every conversation seemed like it was in the context of solutions. And I just think that's just
really
where we are. I would hope at this point nobody listening is still in the hardware only mindset.
Right.
But if you are, this stuff should continue to reinforce the idea that it's time to get into a solution mindset.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, just being on the lookout for new opportunities, always constantly be searching for something new and different to
just a little out of your bubble
to invest in. Yeah, just push at the edge of your bubble a little bit, pop a hand out, try something out.
There you go.
Pull something new in that can be part of your bubble, but expand that out a little bit from time to time. Yeah. And then piling onto Jimmy Yeary's thing is figure out what your story is. What is your story? And it could be a personal part of your story that led you to where you are. Like if you're the founder or owner of your business, maybe there's a personal story that got you where you are, or maybe there's a story within your business that kind of explains who you are and what you are. And make sure that you're telling that story, whether it's through your marketing, whether it's through how you go to market, whether it's through your presentations that you give to new prospective customers, case studies, whatever it is. Find ways to tell that story, because that's, I think that's what Jimmy was trying to get at, is that stories are a way that we all can connect with each other. Everybody likes to sit around and tell stories from their lives. And
it's a good point.
That kind of define who they are and what they are. Figure out what you and your company's story is and tell it as often as you can.
There you go. So. I like it a lot.
All right, hey, let's wrap up with our favorite segment, What's TEConnecting with You, where we talk about something in the world of science, tech, business, innovation.
Yes.
We just feel like getting into today. What's TEConnecting with You right now, Dean?
Well, here's the story. Just when you think aliens might be real, did you see the whole charade? I'm going to call it a charade down in Mexico when they rolled out the mummies of the alien corpses.
I did see this.
I mean, in front of Mexico's, what is it? It was their Senate or whatever, their Congress, Mexico's Congress.
Right.
So you saw the video of these little.
I've seen
what I could tell is paper mache.
Yeah, like it's one of those things. No one's really buying it.
Were you convinced at all?
No,
I mean.
Yeah, that's what weirds me out about this. Like, not weirds me out, but that's what's kind of frustrating about this, because I don't want to be someone who's like complete skeptic, but I also have a hard time really buying into a lot of it.
And then stuff like this happens.
That's just it. Like, it feels like whenever there is a big story about it, and there's someone that like gets to like get on a public platform and talk about this stuff, it's always the people that just don't feel legit in any way whatsoever.
No, so Jamie Maussan, I guess is the way you pronounce it. He's a Mexican journalist and longtime UFO enthusiast. He's the guy that, thinks that this was the historic first of whatever, and he brought two tiny mummified bodies onto the floor.
So here they are, aliens.
Here they are,
and they're
claiming that
they're as
were
prototypical of looking of an alien as you would get. If you asked a child to draw what an alien's supposed to look like, this is exactly what they would make. That's always the thing that bugs me too. It's like it's always the little green man with the giant head and the big eyes, and like, come on, folks, it's possible there could be an alien out there that looks like that, but more likely they're going to look like nothing we've ever encountered.
But to your point, like that's why I said, just when you start to believe that, okay, maybe they're real, then you got people like this out there. It's like, well, clearly it's still a joke.
I wonder if some of the people that like really are into this and really do believe that there's something out there, and whether or not it's visiting here or not or whatever, I wonder if they see this stuff and are like, well, this just set us back another like 10, 20 years.
Exactly.
Exactly. We're back in crackpot space again.
I got one more TEConnecting with you real quick. Floods are bad, right? Just
Yes.
in general,
Yes.
floods usually wreak havoc. Red wine floods Portuguese town after winery tank explodes.
Wow.
So, and they got pictures, so we'll put this in the show notes. You got this video of just red wine, enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool, 600,000 gallons of red wine burst out of tanks and flowed through this so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it in Portugal, the name of the city, but oh man, it just made for a great social media moment where you see just red wine. It looks like a flood happening. Red wine is, and luckily though, they were able to divert the red wine so it didn't hit the local river and make all the fish drunk and stuff like that. So they were able to contain it, but there's some pretty good imagery here of red wine going through
just
the
like
streets.
walk out and just like dip a cup down
Oh
and
yeah,
be like,
there you
oh
go.
yeah.
Yeah, and on social it was more crying about, oh my God, look at all the wasted wine. That's 10 years supply. Blah blah blah.
I'm sure it was quite damaging for the company too, the winery.
Hopefully they had an insurance policy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So what's TEConnecting with you?
So I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the strikes that are happening in Hollywood.
Okay.
And which is all part of this bigger, I think, labor movement that's starting to occur right now.
Sure.
It's really ramping up.
Sure.
But in particular, the Hollywood one is obviously there's a big connection with technology there because a lot of the issues that the writers and the actors that are on strike have it involves what's going on in the world of streaming, the way that we consume entertainment content,
very impactful
television and films at this point, and this giant shift that has happened from movie theaters and also from cable and traditional
Rentals
television to streaming services and on demand platforms. Now, there's obviously a lot of back and forth about this. And in fact, Mark and I were kind of chatting a little about this even before we got on today, is that, I think sometimes people look at, like, they think someone from Hollywood and they're like, oh, like, what are these people crying about? They're all rich, right?
Not the writers.
Not the writers, for one thing. And honestly, not a significant number of actors either. Again, I know,
that's true.
The people you're going to see on the front lines and that they'll talk to and interview and picketing are going to be the stars because that's who people want to see. But like, it's the people that are the little character actors. And I was thinking about this because we were talking about our
extras.
We were talking about our Blue Stardom videos that we've been doing, and some of them we get select, bit actors from, like The Office and from TV shows and stuff, And those are folks that, like, they may be well known for something, but it's not like they're getting paid millions and millions. They're not doing that many new projects, and they're not making a lot of money on their old projects. And again, that's where the sticking point, I think, for a lot of these actors and writers comes from, is that their contracts were built at a time, and a lot of these studios are still using these kind of contracts where you get paid for the initial work you do, and you were supposed to get paid for if your movie stayed in a theater for a certain amount of time,
royalties,
or when traditional television, when a show would get to syndication. Like if a show ran,
that's where a lot of shows made most of their money.
Like the
syndication,
like the old days. If you think of Friends, for instance, Seinfeld,
still to this day,
these shows that once you get to like 100 episode mark, typically that's what a lot of people would try to get to. Once you got to that mark, and it would go into syndication, there's just a whole new swath of money that would be out there potentially for people to cash in on. But now you've seen that's not happening anymore because syndication deals don't really happen that much, except for the absolute biggest shows.
It just goes to streaming.
Yeah, or stuff's getting dumped to streaming where they are not obligated to pay those kind of things at all. And you start getting these stories where you see like writers and some of these bit actors showing off the paychecks that they're being sent, of like residuals, and then we're talking cents,
52 cents.
Yeah, we're not talking dollars, we're not talking hundreds or thousands, we're talking pennies that they're being sent in checks sometimes. So I get where they're coming from with this. And then also you've got this compounded problem that you're starting to hear from like a lot of producers and writers and people creating shows, where streamers, once they get these shows, they kind of belong to them. They have no rights to their own work anymore. And so you've got streamers that are just dropping series, that will just have a series, they'll run it. If they don't think it's successful and they don't want to continue paying any kind of royalties to have it on their service,
they deplatform
it. They just deplatform it, and it's nowhere. And these people have to fight.
They don't have rights to it.
Yeah, these people have to fight to try to get rights back so they can maybe try to shop it somewhere else.
Pretty complicated,
And so like, I think when you start peeling back the layers to understand where they're coming from, you realize like this isn't a bunch of rich people trying to get richer. These are people who have their entire lives wrapped around some of this
I think most
work.
people realize that
I
it's
hope
much
so.
bigger than just.
But I will say, because obviously, the studios that ones that they're butting heads with. And this, the strike could be maybe heading towards a resolution as we're recording this. I think the producers actually sat in on some of the WGA talks yesterday, which they had not been, or the studio heads rather, I think sat in, which normally they had been just hands off and sending their lawyers.
Yeah.
But a lot of them apparently showed up for some of the negotiations. So that maybe they're getting closer to something by this point. But there was an interesting article I came across that I'll briefly mention here. WB Discovery noted that they took a 1/4 loss that is larger than the entire industry case of the entire industry cost of the WGA's proposal. So what the Writers Guild is proposing and what the extra money that they want to be able to give writers and what they're suggesting, like, hey, here's what you should be paying us and here's what percentages we should be getting of our work, wherever it is or whatever. The entire cost that was put together, what that would cost all the studios combined, Warner Brothers Discovery lost that much in 1/4. Because they're not putting out much content right now, or lost because they've allowed these.
So if they had only had this off at the pass, it would have been a wash.
They're losing more money than it would cost the entire studio system.
Unbelievable,
to just simply pay these folks what they're asking.
Isn't that crazy?
For.
That's crazy.
That's where you're just like, what are you doing?
What are we doing here?
Come on,
get
your head out of the sand. Pay these folks.
I
want new episodes of my favorite shows.
That's
come
right.
on.
Make it fair. Move on.
There you go.
Unbelievable.
So that's what's TEConnecting to me, because there is a technology component.
Yes, yes.
I'm a big fan of everything that's happening in the world of streaming. I love the on-demand aspect, but let's pay the folks that are making all this fun stuff that we enjoy watching.
Exactly.
Why
not? Yeah.
All right, that's what's TEConnecting with us. Until next time, go find a mummified alien in your backyard and show it to your local government. See what happens.
Get your 15 minutes of fame.
Exactly. Support strikers, and until next time, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by ELO. Modern point of sale goes beyond just having a touch display and cloud software, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
You need sleek functional accessories, too.
Sleek, yes.
Now, ELO has that covered with their retail-hardened Z-Series POS stands.
Good stuff.
Each model of the Z stand offers cable concealment to keep counter spaces clean. I remember back in the day having like those just
rat's nest.
There's always had like dust bunnies all over. You clean it out like once a year and you're like coughing and hacking them along. Yeah, it's all greasy and nasty.
No, you got to clean that stuff up. You need cable management.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also offer a single cable connection to add a customer-facing display and compatibility with ELO's I-Series displays. The Z20 and 30 offer integrated I/O, and the Z30 can include an integrated customer display.
Nice.
Now, the Z stands are also available as a component of prepackaged ELO POS Android point-of-sale solutions for compact spaces, full service to self-service versatility, or maximum connectivity with interactive CFD. So to compare options and find the right stand for your next POS install, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. Seeing the next generation of Zebra's ultra-rugged handheld mobile computers.
Yes.
They're here.
They're here already?
They're here.
Oh, we've been waiting.
We've been waiting all this time, yes.
And they're here.
Reimagined for the new age of mobility, because who sits still these days?
Right.
We gotta get them.
Nobody sits still.
The TC73 and TC78 deliver performance, efficiency, productivity, and comfort in the most demanding environments.
Yes.
The TC73 is a Wi-Fi 6E device, while the TC78 also utilizes 5G connectivity and support for CBRS private networks.
Boom, right there. There's all your connectivity.
Yeah, no doubt. These things are hyper-connected.
Yes, sir.
Both models have the largest high-resolution bright 6-inch display, next-gen Qualcomm 6490 octa-core processor.
Woo.
Again, don't understand that, but it sounds amazing.
Fast.
Yeah. And includes Zebra's dimensioning certified mobile parcel to calculate dimensions and shipping charges.
Ooh,
handy little feature.
That's a really handy feature right there.
Doing some shipping, you can take care of all that stuff right there on your mobile device.
Done.
Check out the link in the show notes to learn more and find helpful sales resources.